The fruit of the Spirit is self-control. Self-control is the ninth fruit of the Spirit that we read about in Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23. What is self-control? Well, self-control will help us not to give in to our desires and our passions that go contrary to God's way. Self-control will help us to resist temptation. Self-control will help us to keep a rein on our tongues. Self-control will help us to turn away from harmful activity or addictive behavior. Self-control is something that we find very difficult because we all have a sinful nature. The Bible tells us that we have a sinful nature. We're controlled by that sinful nature. We give in to its desires. We end up doing the things that we don't want to do. Even if we want to do good, we find that the good that we want to do, we cannot do. And instead, we find ourselves doing the wrong that we don't want to do. Paul writes about that in Romans chapter 7. We need help to exercise self-control so that we might better live our lives for the glory of God. And we do have help through the Holy Spirit. It's the Holy Spirit who renews the desires within us. It's the Holy Spirit who will work in us this fruit of his activity, self-control, so that no longer are our lives controlled by our sinful natures, but our lives are controlled by the Spirit. Paul writes about that in Romans chapter 8. The Apostle Peter, he knew about the lack of self-control. So often he would say something or do something without thinking. And it's Peter who writes in 1 Peter 5 and verse 8, he urges us that we would be self-controlled, that we would be alert and self-controlled. Why? Well, because the devil is prowling around. He's like a roaring lion that is looking for someone to devour. And Peter knew how easily it was to give in to those temptations that come through the devil. Without self-control, we will be an easy target for the devil. But with self-control, then we will be far better equipped in order to live lives that please God and bring him glory. Well, may God work in us by the Holy Spirit to cultivate this fruit of self-control, as well as the other fruit of the Spirit that are mentioned in Galatians chapter 5.